something something just got delivered. You're gonna be excited about this. Hopefully, I am. Yeah. Let's get it inside and open it up, see what it is. What do we have here? Oh yeah. I've been wanting one of these for a while. I've really been wanting a full Topdon scan tool for a while, and yeah, thanks to you guys in the channel, they sent me one. This is awesome. So you get this big briefcase of a case. It's real nice, hard plastic. Everything's got its own little spot. Bunch of the accessory cables and whatnot up here. Oh, yeah. This is so cool. There it is. Alright, so I got it completely registered, updated, everything. So let's give it a try. We've got a, I think it was a 04 Silverado. That's a crank no start. And I know for a fact my Snap-on won't auto scan this because I like a full health report. It'll pull a VIN, but it won't give me a health report. And that's one of the things that I've disliked about it, is some of these older vehicles, it just won't do a health report on. So let's see how the Topdon Phoenix Smart does. So got it plugged up and just gonna tap the auto scan. We'll start the screen recorder here and just see how it works. And it says the vehicle is communicating. So give it a minute and see what happens here. So the little ding means it's got a VIN. So yep, 04. And we're just going to do a scan. I also know the PCM doesn't have any codes in it. So even though it says no codes for the PCM, I'm not too worried about it. And of course, it's going to go through and ask questions. We've got auto, so yes. And it is 4-button selectable. Level up radio. We've got dual zone manual. Okay, we are equal to or under. I probably selected the wrong one, but oh well. Smart scan. So we've got topograph, which even the newest Snap-on doesn't have. I don't know if there's going to be any codes in this thing at all, but I'm not too worried that it doesn't pull any codes, because I already know powertrain doesn't have codes. So I'm just gonna let this run, see what it comes up with. This thing's fairly base model truck, really. I mean, we've got power windows and power locks, and it's old, so it's not like it's going to have a whole lot of modules. It's cool though that even though it's old, they've still got the topograph, and that it can do a full scan. I know the Autel will full scan this thing. Alright, sorry about that, I had a phone call. But anyways, it has completed its scan, and we actually have a couple codes in here. So, temperature control malfunction in the HVAC, and passenger presence sensor, no state of health from module, and lost comm with the instrument cluster. That's interesting. The instrument cluster, it doesn't have any codes in it, so I'm not too worried about that. We're here for a no start, so let me just show you. And as you notice, we don't have RPM gauge movement at all, so that's an annoying beep dinger. So let's go into the powertrain here and pull up some live data. Engine data. So engine speed, I don't really care too much about much on here. That's probably good enough. I just want to know, do I got RPM signal getting to the ECM? So basically looking for crank signal. Okay, let's do graph. And nothing. Okay. We got ignition volts. Let's graph everything. So we got ignition volts. Did we get mass airflow movement? That's saying 0. Is it because of the way that is set? Because it's in pounds. I don't really particularly like that. Let's see. I don't know if I can change that. Pounds per hour, pounds per second, I guess. I don't know. I wish that was in grams. Maybe there's a setting to change that. But either way, still gotta learn it. New tool, gotta learn it. So it'll take me some time to figure everything out with this thing. But anyways, I guess we'll continue on with figuring out what's wrong with this truck. All right, so a little bit of backstory on this thing. Apparently the customer is just driving down the road and it just died. They had it hauled to their house or whatever, and he's already shotgunned a few parts at it. I think a crank sensor or maybe something else. But the shop here has already been checking this, and they actually had the crank sensor unplugged and determined there was no 12 volt getting there. So they've been checking stuff at the PCM, and they say there's no 12 volt coming out of the PCM. And on the wiring diagram here, you can see that the crankshaft sensor gets a 12 volt reference, a low reference, and then a signal wire, as well as the camshaft gets a 12 volt reference, low reference, and a signal wire. And this C1 pin 2 is the one they say don't have voltage on it. So let's just double check that, make sure there's no voltage coming out of it. Alright, so I got a voltmeter set up here and just connected to ground. I've got my jumper cables hooked up to my van just to keep the battery up. It was apparently dead when the shop got it. So we're looking for connector C1, pin 2, and these old connectors are actually numbered pretty good. Like, I don't know if you'll be able to see, they've got the pin numbers right there. So we're going to just back probe in here to pin 2, and on voltmeter, nothing. And if I pull my pin out, see my voltage change, go back in there. So getting just a few millivolts. So I know I'm getting a connection there. So they're right. There is no 12 volts coming out of this PCM. So what would you do next? You check powers and grounds. Really, you only have to check ground. You can check your powers. It's got to be getting 12 volts from somewhere. And they've already done that. They say it's got 2 powers and 2 ignitions and then a crank signal, if I remember right. But we'll pull up a diagram. We'll double check all those anyway. It's kind of nice being able to pull up some diagrams on my scan tool. Of course, I could do it with the Snap-on, but Snap-on's software is so out of date that things don't really like to run on it too well. And this is all built in to the scan tool. Let me just close this out and we'll scroll up here. Get to our powers and grounds. Let's see, there we go. So we've got ignition 0, crank, ignition 1, battery, battery. So like I said, 12 volts has got to come from one of these sources. Obviously it's not going to be crank, because once you let off the starter or your crank position on the switch, that goes away. So let's check the 2 batteries, the voltage 1 and voltage 0. And I've still got the key on. You can see we still got a check engine light. So let's just voltage check those. And we could also take a test light and load them a little bit. Make sure we've got current flow. So according to our diagram here, we've got to get to C120 and C157. So right here is C120. Back probe in there, we get a light and 12.1. And then 57 is 57 right there. So same thing. We got a light and 12.1. So we got our 2 battery powers. So now we're looking for ignition 0, which is C175, and 19, C119. So let's go 75. Right over here. Okay, light and 12.1. So that one's good. We only got 19 left. And 19 is going to be right here beside our 20. And look at that. So we've got all 4 power feeds to the PCM is good. And the reason why I'm not concerned about checking grounds is because if 12 volts is going in, 12 volts should be coming out. I don't really think they're going to run it through a regulator circuit and make it be switched separately. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So really doubt a ground issue is going to be the problem. So what can make our 12 volt signal not be there? Well, what if it's shorted to ground? So let's get back into our crank signal, and I'm actually going to feed in some voltage and through my test light and see if it lights up. If it lights up, it means it's going to be pulling half a current or half an amp of current. That would probably be a short to ground. I can't think of any sensor that's going to pull half an amp of current. Okay, so I've got one end of my test lamp just clipped onto the battery power at the alternator, which is going into my meter. As you can see, it's got 12.3 volts, and this end is open. So what I'm looking for is this to say or keep at 12 volts or close, and that bulb not light up. If the bulb lights up, like if I touch this to ground, that bulb lights up, you see our voltage drops to nothing. So let's get into that crank sensor power feed, which was pin 2 down here. Kind of hard to see in camera at the same time. And look at that. We're only getting 200 milliamp or millivolts, and our bulb is lit. So I'm pretty confident that this has a short to ground on this 12 volt reference, whether it be a sensor or wire harness somewhere. That's what we need to figure out now. I don't know how many things is on this 12 volt reference, but I know it's a crank sensor and a cam sensor at least. I don't really can't think of too many other things that would be using this 12 volt. So let me look through some diagrams and see if we can figure anything out. And really my next step is, if those are my two things on it, I'm just going to unplug them. Unplug them one at a time and see if my short goes away. So I scrolled through all the diagrams. The only ones I can find is the cam and crank that have a true 12 volt reference. So I'm kind of wondering, does the cam share the same one? So it says it's on C2 pin 39. So let me undo my bulb here. And this is C2 and 39 is right here. It says it's a red wire, and that's a red wire. So we've got no voltage to the cam sensor either. So they are shared. So I've got a 12 volts that goes to cam, a 12 volts that goes to crank, and they're shared somehow in the PCM. So let's start by maybe unplugging the cam sensor. And on this engine, I'm pretty positive it's off the back of the intake manifold beside the oil pressure sensor. Can't really even see back there with the flashlight, so I'm just gonna reach back there and see if I can feel it and unplug it, and see if my voltage here comes up. Oh, I just wiggled it and just wiggled the harness and it come up. Well, that's not good. Where did that happen? Oh man. Damn it. Oh man, I bet this thing's gonna crank now. Crap. Well, we know it's behind the intake. Let me make sure I've got everything out of the way here. Yeah, everything. They had this all loose, so, but it's out of the way. I can spin this over. There it goes, cranks and runs. So there's definitely a short to ground back there somewhere. So I guess I'll pull this engine cover off and just make sure there's nothing under this engine cover right here that this could be shorted to. So my assumption is it's got to come out of the PCM. It's going to go up in here and come across into this harness. So maybe if it was shorted onto this, somehow it could be grounded out. You know, these are plastic fuel rails. That's hose. So really this should be isolated unless there's multiple wires shorted here. And it is sitting on it, but is it rubbed into some wires? I don't know. And I feel like it would be in this side of the harness, because the way this goes down behind the intake is where my sensor harness is, down there. This side just has the manifold pressure sensor and goes over to the coils and throttle body and whatnot. So if I've got a short, it should be on this side right here or behind the intake. So here's a little trick for you. What I do is I just slide a mirror under them and I pick them up. I know I'm not going to be able to get y'all at the right angle, but I pick them up and just kind of look and kind of see where the tape has been sitting there rubbing, but there's no wires exposed. It's just tape. So I don't think my issue is right there. It's got to be back there somewhere. So I get my light back out and get in here with my mirror and see if I can see anything. I've not had any luck finding anything. I can't really see back there, and I left my my bore scope, my test-along bore scope, at my shop. Had to charge it, so it's on the charger at the shop. So here's where we're at. It's a problem back there, and I think I'm just gonna let the shop here pull the intake manifold off of this thing, and that way they can get eyes on it, and I feel like they'll be able to figure out what it is once they get the intake pulled off. They can get in there. I'm sure they'll find it. Could possibly just be the sensor itself. The plug might have so much crud in it, oil, water, coolant, something in it that was pulling it down, and me just barely wiggling it, you know, basically took that path away. So that's the diagnosis on this thing. We've got some kind of short to ground in the cam sensor circuit, pulling the 12 volt reference down. And as far as the Phoenix Smart, you guys will be seeing some more of this thing, because I'm hoping this will be my new daily driver scan tool. And soon, once I get used to it and familiar, I'll give you a full review on it, the pros and cons about it, and how I'm liking it. So just keep an eye out for that if you're interested in one. But thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you guys later.